Eminem is the greatest rapper of all time. I'm just joking, everybody. I'm just joking. We all
I mean,
know.
that's what Isaac thinks.
Of course, we know Isaac thinks that, but we all know that Nas and Jay-Z and others.
You have to say Kendrick Lamar. That's like a signal that you're cultured. I'm convinced nobody actually cares.
Welcome to the Office Hours Podcast. This is TK Coleman and Isaac Morehouse. We're like the Geek Squad for your professional development. Got a job you're trying to get, a work-related issue you're trying to resolve, a project you're trying to complete, an obstacle that's holding you up? Well, you're in the right place. You bring the problem, we bring the nuts and bolts. This is where you get philosophical insight and actionable advice on how to take charge of your life and career.
This one is from Kayla. My question relates back to showing your work and process. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the balance of vulnerability and professionalism. Being on the young side, I'm 17, I struggle with knowing how much to show my learning process without looking juvenile. I know people don't expect me to have a lot of experience at my age, but I tend to like to be prepared and have it together. I would appreciate your insight. Thanks.
My first thought is don't try to answer this question yet. Get some stuff out there first. And then maybe ask a few people to look at it and say, hey, what do you think? Does this feel like I'm oversharing? Because you'll torture yourself in the abstract trying to be like, how much should I share, blah, blah, and then you'll just never want to do anything. So start doing your blog posts, start sharing your learning, start getting it out there. And if you got a first couple of YouTube videos and somebody's like, hey, you don't need to like tell us that you went on a bad date last night, you're oversharing, then you can go delete it and it's not that big of a deal. You're young, you can recover easily. Even if you have stuff out there from when you were young that you're embarrassed of later, it's not that big of a deal. So I would start doing it first before you try to answer the question. If you've already got stuff out there, you can ask a few people if you want some feedback. You can look at it yourself through the eyes of somebody that might be looking at it you'd want to see and think about it. And I think a good way to possibly think about this sort of learning out loud, showing your work is if it's revealing the process you're going through, there's almost no level of transparency that I think is like too much or oversharing. If it's revealing your inner state, your emotional state when you're going through that process, there can be oversharing because it can come off like emotional manipulation or like you want someone to feel bad for you or whatever. If you're not careful, it can come off.
Or that you just don't have a filter.
Exactly. Yeah. It can come off victim-y a little bit. Like it doesn't mean you have to pretend like you never struggle or anything. You can be like, I got to be honest, I was really down and depressed when I couldn't figure out this thing. Not a big deal. But if you're constantly sharing sort of more on the emotional side or like personal details of your life, like about, your boyfriend breaking up with you or whatever. I just don't think that's really adding anything. You don't have to hide or whitewash it, but I don't think there's really any danger to oversharing things that might make you look dumb, so to speak, right? Like the whole, I love the Reddit, the subreddit, explain like I'm 5, because the process of asking the question itself requires some humility.
Yeah.
Like, hey, explain like I'm 5, why clouds are like this or whatever, or a question that you kind of wonder, maybe everybody else already knows this. And it's like, it's actually okay to reveal your ignorance. Like, hey, turns out I didn't know how to upload a YouTube video. So this is what I learned. Like, don't be embarrassed that you didn't know that. I think that's actually a good kind of transparency.
Yeah, man, I think that's right on the money. So for me, I would contextualize everything with the following distinction. There's a difference between making a claim to knowledge and making a claim to commitment. If you make a claim to knowledge, that means you're positioning yourself as someone that's an expert, someone that's a master, someone that knows what they're doing. And if you're gonna make that claim, then you need to be able to back that claim up. If you're gonna make a claim to knowledge, then you wanna make sure you have all of your stuff together before you put yourself out there. But learning out loud is about a different claim. It's about making a claim to commitment. It's about announcing to the world that I am committed to my own personal development, that I understand that I don't know everything, and I'm going to go after specific forms of knowledge for specific purposes, and I'm going to let you watch the process. When you make a claim to commitment, you're signaling something different from expertise. You're signaling something that eliminates the concern about looking bad. You're signaling something like, this is how I approach the learning process. I'm willing to do things that are difficult. I know how to transition from don't know what I'm doing to, hey, I'm starting to figure things out. And in the professional world, when you're trying to seek out opportunities, that's going to be one of the most important things. Don't lie by presenting yourself as knowledgeable when you're not, and don't pressure yourself by limiting the promises you make to only those that are claims to knowledge. Relieve yourself from that pressure by recontextualizing the process of showing your work by saying, I am not showing them what I know. I'm showing them what I'm willing to learn and what I look like as I navigate.
And it's
that
really
process.
fun. It's like inviting people along the journey with you. Like,
Yep.
hey, I'm going to read 30 articles in 30 days about search engine optimization. And then, day one, you write about, hey, I read this article. I actually didn't understand it at all. So I got to go back more basic. And people feel like, I'm going to put that in a TK phrase. It's like, it's not about telling people what you know, but telling them where you want to go.
Yeah.
How's that?
And you know what's funny too, man, is no one ever says, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about when you talk with enthusiasm about something you want to learn. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can be at any age and people will get excited for you if you're like, hey, you know what? I never paid attention to physics when I was in school, but I'm all hyped up on it now, and I'm going to read this children's physics book and start learning it. People are going to be like, hey, check this out too. Or, oh, this is awesome. This is pretty cool. I want to watch and see what you learn. No one's going to be like, oh, this person doesn't know what they're talking about, because you already established that as the frame.
If anything, it's better. You want to start with, if you can show just how ignorant you were at the beginning. It's like if you're going to lose weight, you want the before picture to look as fat as possible because it only makes the after picture look better.
All right, I got one from Jed. Thanks for the opportunity. As I'm approaching month 2, I'm deciding on a project that will give me some experience in digital marketing, such as Facebook ads.
This is month 2 of the Praxis boot camp.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
SEO or email marketing. I have very little experience in this, but it's something I want to have at least a solid grasp on when I start my apprenticeship. I'm leaning towards starting a drop shipping site and testing Facebook ads to drive traffic. My question is, do you have any other suggestions for project ideas to get my feet wet in digital marketing, or even online courses / content that will give me more knowledge in this? Thanks a lot. And then there's a part B that's a different subject, but
I mean, it sounds like you already have some ideas for projects. Like, I don't think that I'm going to give you anything better. You've thought about your own goals and projects more than I have. I mean, Isaac, what are digital marketing projects? I could throw out a bunch, but the likelihood that those will be better for you than what you're already thinking about is almost zero. So just pick one of those that you mentioned in that question and go for it. That's the best thing to do. Don't overthink it.
Yeah, there's an underestimated power to simplicity. You know, I see so many people in situations where they say, hey, so I'm thinking about these 5 options. You got like another 10 or 15 to overwhelm me with so that I can spend another 2 months thinking about it. The best choice is to go with your gut and do the thing that's interesting to you. And remember, the purpose of this portfolio project you're working on is not to get it right, but it's to learn by doing. And it doesn't matter if you build a successful drop shipping site. What matters is that if you try to build a successful drop shipping site and you learn the things that you need to know in order to get there. So go with that one. I like the one that you have.
The goal isn't to get it right. It's to move up and to the right in your personal growth graph. I mean, really, just as long as you're moving, every movement is a positive move unless it's in the opposite direction. And the only opposite direction moves are things that you absolutely hate. So you're good to go. Just pick one and jump in.
Here you go. You can do this. You can say the goal isn't to get it right. The goal is to choose the right way of getting it.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Yes.
We could teach a class, man. Elisa, I'm curious to know, what were some obstacles you faced when starting up Praxis and how you overcame them?
Whew.
What were some? You're like, man.
How much time you got?
Yeah, how many do I get?
Okay, so if you really want to know more, and this is not nearly comprehensive either, but I wrote a short book called 11 Lessons from Bootstrapping a Non-Tech Startup, which is sort of just some of the main takeaways from getting Praxis off the ground. And if you don't want to buy the book, the whole book is posted as a really long article on Medium, I think. It's called like a very long article on startup lessons or something like that. But I think some of the obstacles, that was a question, what are the obstacles you faced? Most of them are, I think all of them are psychological, because the material obstacles you face, it's really just a way of looking at them that overcomes them. So one of the first big ones was, I had this idea for this model, which was there's zero tuition, and then you go to your apprenticeship, but you don't get paid at your apprenticeship. And so Praxis earns its money by the business paying us for us to send them an apprentice who works for free for 6 months. And that is great. A zero tuition program. You come in, you pay nothing, and in a year you walk out most likely with a full-time job and a lot of learning. Awesome. So I was all ready to go ahead with this. And it turns out the Department of Labor makes it illegal to work for free in many instances. Yeah. It's like the apprentice, the language is absurd. It's like they cannot, as long as they don't create any value for the company, and preferably they like destroy that, like impede the company's operation, you can work for free. Like the stupidest thing ever. Like, you can work for free as long as you're a pain in everyone's ass and don't help the company at all, right? It's just a protectionist crap. So I was utterly defeated. I was so mad. My righteous anger at the government flared up, and I was like, every time you try to do it. And I tell this to my brother, and he just starts laughing. And I'm like, how can you laugh at my pain? This is my baby. I've got this whole thing, the model. We're about to get the website launched, everything, And he's like, look, there's always something like that. And there's always a way around it. He's like, I don't know what it is, but you'll figure it out. He's like, this is a good thing. This is the kind of thing that will stop lesser competitors from moving forward. And he didn't say that as in like he favors protectionist policies. He's saying like whatever hurdle you face that you think makes it impossible, if you really care about this thing, that hurdle is going to end up being your friend, because you're going to be the one that breaks through. It's like that Randy Pausch, that famous lecture, like the last lecture. He's like, walls are your friend because they keep out the people who want it less. And he reframed it by laughing at it and finding it funny. And I was like, oh. And as soon as I stopped being angry and like caught his humor and playfulness, he was like, it's a game. It's all a game. There's always a solution. I was like, oh. And as soon as I thought it was funny, I thought of a solution. Like I couldn't think of a solution when I was full of anger because I was just angry at the obstacle. And the solution was pretty simple. It was the model we have now essentially, which is, okay. I want the experience to be a cost of zero to the participant because I want to make it a no-brainer. You don't pay anything. Nobody can compete with that. You pay us nothing. You don't pay us later when you make money as a share of your income. You pay us nothing. The whole thing is zero. So the only way to make it work, you pay tuition, but you get paid at the apprenticeship at least as much as your tuition. And so you earn the same as you pay, you net out at zero. A little more complicated, not quite as fun marketing-wise, but it works just fine. And like, I would have stopped if I hadn't been given a shift in mindset that said, this obstacle is funny and it's all part of the game. And that was a really big one that sticks out. I got tons of them, but that's the only one I'll share now because it's clear on the top of my head.
Yeah, I like that one, man.
What about you, man? When we were getting this baby going, I mean, you joined working for free while you're doing another job on the side. We couldn't pay you for like a good while.
That's illegal, right? But I destroyed value.
No, you had some equity though, so it's okay. Yeah, you did. You destroyed tons of value. You were a great impediment.
So, man, there are a couple, but I think one of the things we talk about a lot is that we are truly a market-driven approach to education, meaning that we are constantly receiving and soliciting feedback from the people who make hiring and firing decisions in our business partner network. And what those people value is different than the kinds of things you learn in school or maybe the kinds of things you might hear on a success podcast because it's highly contextual. And when you're starting a business, you don't get that kind of feedback as much as you can by sending a specific person to that company and then saying, what can we do better, right? I mean, if you go do a survey and say, hey, excuse me, business owner, what types of things do you look for in an employee? You're going to get some abstract answer that's partly meaningful, partly just you can get it out of any success book. But if you send someone there to work and you talk to them every week or every month and say, hey, how are they struggling and how can we help? You get a different kind of knowledge. So a lot of the knowledge we needed to make this thing grow was the very kind of knowledge we didn't have access to in the beginning. And we just had to make choices about what we're going to teach, how we're going to train people, kind of going in blind. And that was really difficult. And very early on, when you're dealing with business owners, there's this interesting thing about them. And they're often very competitive and very ambitious and very driven. So when they experience a problem, the last thing they do is go run to someone else for help. And we built our model on them communicating that stuff to us so that we can improve.
Oh, why didn't you tell us?
Yeah, exactly. And so business owners would be like, oh yeah, well, we didn't say anything because we just wanted to figure it out ourselves. But they struggle to figure it out, and they got it to us a lot later. And figuring out the right incentives. How do we incentivize people to share with us the information that we need to help improve our education experience? That I would say that was probably one of the bigger challenges.
Yeah.
All right, there's a part B from Elisa. I have a dream of owning my own business. I love craft coffee and wine and want to open up a business where I can share that love with the world. I've worked in different coffee shops and restaurants and know I enjoy the work. I'm afraid of the financial side of opening up a shop. I know that there is risk in opening any business, but I'm mostly afraid because I don't know where to begin. Any advice on where to begin?
Hey, first of all, that gets me super excited that you want to open a business. There's nothing that gets me more excited than people who know that they want to do that. So that's awesome, and I hope you do. I mean, I don't know anything in particular about retail business, wine, etc. But I would say if you want to do it and you've done the work enough to know that you enjoy the work and this is a business you're interested in, and you're worried about the financial side, try to reduce the financial risk and commitment as much as possible, because it's really easy up front to think, okay, to do this, I need 20,000 feet of retail space, and that's going to cost this, and I'm going to need a 2-year lease, and I'm going to need all this equipment, and you're going to be like, okay, I need like $300,000 to get this thing going. That's how I thought of Praxis at first. I put it all together. I'm like, okay, I need $1 million. And it was like, well, actually, no, I don't. I need a customer. What can I do for free to line up some customers so I get a little bit of revenue, and then I can do a little more? And I didn't raise $1 million to get it started. But I thought I needed to at first. And so I would say, if you can ask yourself, what's one thing I can do every single day to move closer to getting this business launched? And until you run into, there's literally not a single other thing I could do absent having a bunch of money, then just keep taking those steps. And you will find you can do a lot more than you think. And some of those things, ways of reducing the need for money or the risk, could be things like, hey, maybe I go to some other store that's a bookstore and say, could you let me for a week set up a little coffee corner over here, or do a wine tasting every once in a while? And all you got to do is buy a small amount of inventory and wine, a couple $100. You do a very small wine tasting and see if you can earn back the couple $100 and maybe a little more. Or maybe you do something like you create a Kickstarter style thing or an email list where you say, hey, I want to start this wine business, but I want to make sure that once I've got 100 people signed up who say that they will want to come to the first wine tasting and pay $20 a ticket, then I'll rent a space and do it. And then you start renting spaces and going around on a small scale and building a customer base. And once you have the proven demand that justifies a 20,000 square foot rental space for a 2-year contract, now you go in and do it, and you've de-risked that by spending a small amount, seeing if you can earn back on that amount. Spend a little more, see if you can earn back on that. That's kind of a way that I would try to approach it.
Yeah, it sounds like you're saying, hey, do all the things you have to do anyway, the things you'd have to do if you had the money, and get started on all the things that's going to make the money flow in, that's going to make you a worthy investment. Just building on that, I would say do 2 different kinds of value props. The first, focus on an existing coffee shop that you think you could enjoy working at, and create a value prop that says, here are some creative ideas I have, and here's how they significantly reduce your expenses or increase your revenue. That's something that you're going to have to think about anyway. If you own a coffee shop, you're going to have to think about how to reduce expenses or increase revenue. Why did I just get stuck? I think it's because I'm asking myself, wait a minute, I'm using a redundant.
Put yourself in a situation too where, with that coffee shop, say, can you do something that will allow you to like earn a percentage of the revenue? And maybe move you closer to to starting something independent, to proving that demand. I think often you think about, especially for retail where there is some upfront capital costs, well, I don't want to go into debt and risk it and rent and then just hope customers come. And in order to, let's say, get a loan, I have to like prove that there's a market. And so you start to get into research mode. I'm going to go look at the data. How large, what's the population? How much coffee per capita is consumed? What's the average margins on a cup of coffee? And not that stuff's bad, but that's all like business schooly type stuff. It's like, okay, and then I got to put together the case that proves that this is a worthy investment and then hope that it ends up being right.
Yep.
Instead, try to prove demand with actual customers of some kind. And that's where I would say having 500 people on an email list that have committed or prepaid $20 for the first wine tasting is better proof than a bunch of research on the market. Doing something like a roving thing where you're renting space or whatever, something where you can prove the demand by actual market actions people take instead of just putting together a bunch of research data and then getting a big capital outlay.
Yeah, and I think coffee shops are a potential customer. If you can create value in that space, I would take the challenge of trying to get at least one coffee shop to buy into some value prop I create. You can come up with creative ideas for how to help them grow.
Yeah, or even like, hey, you guys don't have a location on this side of town.
Yep.
So rather than starting off from scratch, say, what if we do a temporary location for a week and see how the demand is? And if so, let me expand and manage and let me run it like my own franchise, whatever. Again, you can de-risk a lot of these things.
You and I used to go to this jazz club in Kalamazoo back in the day. I think it was something like, was it 211?
District 211.
District 211. Yeah. So we have a mutual friend, Sean Thunder Wallace, jazz musician who he used to play there like every week.
With the Butterfat Trio, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember asking him, hey, man, how'd you get this? I mean, who gave you this gig? And he was like, I walked in and I told him, hey, I got a jazz band. We can come in here and play on Thursday nights, and we'll make this percentage of your revenue. If we don't generate more people coming in here, then we don't really make anything. How about that? And they were like, that sounds cool. That's a good idea. That's worth trying. And it became a really popular night that worked for everybody. That restaurant became known for being like a jazz spot, even though they didn't open up as a jazz restaurant. And that was a really popular night that a lot of people went to. And it's that kind of thing. It's what you're going to have to do anyway if you're running your own coffee shop. You're going to have to look for opportunities like that. Find them now. Don't wait for someone to invest in you. Try to pitch those ideas to existing coffee shops. And hey, here's one more thing. I think it's worth creating content around this. If you know that you love coffee and you want to go into the coffee business, then I would start building my brand now by creating value for people. Educate them about the different aspects of this stuff that you are interested in, whether that's making YouTube videos or doing a coffee podcast where you interview other people in the space or you write blog posts about it. Whenever you get around to going after that money, you'll be taken a lot more seriously if you start now and have a year behind you of content creation.
And local markets are often pretty low on competition with content and digital stuff. Like, if you're in a city and you say, okay, I want to try to dominate the search results for specialty coffee in X city, you're going to see there's not a ton of competition most of the time. And so if you're really tight and specific, you do that podcast and it's called, if here in South Carolina, Low Country Coffee Podcast. Well, you might have a tiny audience, but you're going to be the only one in this area. And maybe you go to a local radio station and say, hey, what if I do a 30-second bit every Friday where I tell a tip on gourmet coffee? And it's sponsored by whatever Low Country Coffee, whatever. And you can build a brand maybe easier than you think without any capital outlay. And then when you announce, now that you have following, we're opening a location, you've got some, built-in demand.
Yeah, don't let the world be surprised when you announce, hey, I'm going into coffee. The reaction shouldn't be, you? Yeah. You're into that? It should be awesome, man. That seemed like the next step for you.